what is our vision as an organization? What are our non-negotiable values? And what are our strategic goals? That if we are able to fulfill those goals, that is transformational for a company.
Right.
And so the greatest companies are true to themselves internally first.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Exit Is Now podcast with me, your host, Scott Snider, hanging out today on the show with one of my favorite people in the world, Fred Johnson. Fred, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Scott.
I love that came in from Wisconsin last night, had some dinner, and it's always great to catch up. Fred actually, Fred, you probably, for our audience and our followers, you've kind of heard our story through through the leadership transformation process. And how his programs has affected our culture and really who we are, both as human beings and as an organization at EPI. And last year we invited Fred to sit on our board of advisors, and so Fred has even furthered his impact here at the Exit Planning Institute. And why I wanted to have him on the show is I wanted to start to have a discussion around people and culture and the change that we have made over the last 5 years at the Exit Planning Institute that has evolved into this organization that is not just about me, but about we. And we talk to it, I think, inside of the value acceleration methodology as strong human and structural capital. And that's, at the end of the day, I really think that's what Fred's programming and Fred's process and approach does. It strengthens your people. It builds a culture that they can live within so that you can make quicker decisions, have stronger and greater impacts. And so I want to take us on a little bit of a journey through EPI's history over the last 5 years and start to talk with Fred how we've embraced that change and how do we continue to scale it as we move from 51 employees today to, I think the number is 107 in 3 years. And so I want to start by kind of painting a picture for the audience and when we met. So for those of us that have followed the Exit Planning Institute over the years, in 2019, you are our keynote speaker at the Exit Planning Summit in San Antonio, Texas. We had about 400 people there, and if you remember, a long, skinny ballroom at the St. Anthony Hotel, an autograph collection Marriott. And we were introduced to each other by a SEPA, and I started to get to know your programs. And generally, I feel that the Certified Exit Planning Advisor is a leader. They are relationship-based, and the owner leans into these folks to help them grow, help them drive value into their company and align business, personal, and financial goals. So I thought somebody that was an expert in leadership and change and navigating change would be a great keynote. One of the things that you said that I remember, but it kind of breezed past me when I first met, was as you started to get to know us, and this is probably the expert or maybe the counselor in you as well, where you said from the outside, EPI looked like they had it all together, but in the inside, you thought there were some things going on that needed to be addressed. Can you talk through that feeling that you had when you started to integrate with us at EPI?
Sure. Well, when I started working with you all, I could remember I met your team for the first time, and there was a lot of activity that was going on. And I could sense when some of your team was talking to each other behind the scenes, there was some tension.
Yeah.
One person was, who's no longer here, was talking down. You could see fear in people's eyes. And then I watched what would happen when those 4 people left. That one person would leave, the other 3 would go over in the corner and they'd have a discussion. And I knew that was the meeting after the meeting. So I gathered by that, this is a culture that doesn't do conflict very well. There are some things that are under the table that are not being addressed. whenever you find a team that does not lean in to conflict, because there's conflict with every team.
Of course.
You spend more time with your team than you do with your family. So conflict is inevitable. But if you're not addressing it proactively, it will reactively address you. And so I saw that. And I also sensed that Chris is not exactly what you would call an introvert with low energy. You know?
Yeah.
And expressing feelings and expressing what's on his mind is not a challenge for Chris.
No.
And he and I are a lot alike. He's a high D, dominant, and he could easily fall into my way or the highway.
Or what you would call as like a steamroller.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
dictatorial steamroller.
Exactly right.
And I could see that. And so you have that combination. You have, I could sense there was a lack of unity with your team. And then just having such a strong, dominant leader, that's the recipe for a lot of what I would call appearance as a team. And the teams that I'm always most watching are the teams that I would call those teams that are have image management down to a T.
Yeah.
And I just felt that you guys had image management down to a T. I never heard from talking to your people, hey, you go, oh, everything's great. And and whenever I'm around someone as a leader that if they convey this sense that everything's wonderful, I always have my red flags up because none of us have things that everything's perfect. And it's the person who appears that they have their act together is the one that I'm always the most hesitant about.
See, Fred, for me, I'm trying to put myself back into so this is, again, September 2019, right? So no one really knows what's about to come down the road, too, with our pandemic, right?
Yes.
Which was really the brick wall moment, if you will.
You bet.
But the hard part for me to even see through it and, recognizing it was difficult because we were hitting our numbers. Like that summit that you were at was a highly customer satisfaction was high. People, it was a growing conference, right? We, every year we add another 100 people to the show, and we were probably the most proud of that, the production of that show. If you recall, the St. Anthony was a smaller boutique style hotel. So it was one of those opportunities for us to take over the entire place. So everything was branded EPI. So to your point about image, it wasn't just image, I think, in people, but it was this image that you walked into, this community that you became a part of where everything looked so cool. But it was hard to recognize the deeper problem for me because it was like, well, all of our employees seem happy. They're all here, and they've all been here a while, and we're growing the hell out of this company. Isn't this fun? And then you fast forward to March 2020, and I think it was January 2020 where I said, look, I think I want to be a customer of yours. I want to be a client. I want to take my team actually through your stuff because I remember sitting in the summit watching your keynote, very motivated and inspired. And I was like, oh, this is a different style of leadership training that I don't think people have done. I certainly haven't done. And so I think that would be really cool for our high-performing small team at the time. Yeah. And we were going back and forth because my dad was like, are you going to spend that kind of money on leadership training? He's like, remember he told you, he's like, well, I'll just do it.
What's the ROI on this?
Yeah. And so we kind of shelved it for a little bit because me and Dad couldn't find alignment on it and then the pandemic hit. And this is my brick wall moment, is that we had started up your sessions, and the first session was awkward in and of itself, right? I always say it's kind of like group therapy. So your session was certainly different than any leadership program that we have been to. And then we get to the second session, and we lost some people. If you remember that 2 people then after that first session left the company. So now we've just pivoted an entire SEPA program. We launched that on April 25th, 2020. We just came out of having 2 months of no revenue. I actually had to I gifted my paycheck to 2 employees who were really, really struggling at home. And the industry were kind of singing our praises because we had pivoted this whole program. We had 500 people in our first online SEPA program, and EPI is back with a program that's frankly better than ever. And in this 3-layered learning process that we created, had something different than just a Zoom call, which I think people were doing at the time to deliver their programs and their conferences and stuff. And it was another huge win for us, or so I thought, right? And something felt different. We started to lose people after the first session, which you said might happen because change is difficult, and this kind of stuff really is not necessarily for all people.
Well, what we've learned is people who are toxic, they can smell accountability a mile away.
And so they knew it was coming.
They knew it was coming. And it was not that we were going to beat them over the head with something. It was that we were going to be transparent about what we were seeing.
Exactly.
And
this process would have definitely had it. In the following sessions, it started boiling all to the top.
Yes.
And the brick wall moment for me was in either session 2 or session 3, where it just got more awkward. It wasn't getting we had deeper conversations. So we were deepening our relationship with you and with your process and approach, but it was just getting more awkward. And in that second or third session, Jocelyn, who was our director of operations and now a senior event manager at EPI, said, "Scott, let me just shoot you straight." And if you recall, Jocelyn and most of the people at EPI then, these weren't just my employees. These were some of my dearest friends. And in the old days of EPI where we were, a 5, or at the time we were an 11-person team, 6 of those 11 people I had deep personal friendships with that frankly I brought into the business because you know their work ethic, character, and you can trust them. Yeah. And Jocelyn is on this call and goes, "Scott, I'll just shoot you straight. I think one of the reasons why it's so awkward, somebody's finally got to tell you here. There's 11 people at your company, and we're all looking for jobs right now." And that was you're running at 200 miles per hour, and you hit head on a brick wall. It shattered everything. And you have a series of emotions, right? Some of it is shock. Some of it's crisis mode, oh shit, what are we going to do with all of this stuff? What are we going to do now that all of our people are leaving and we have $3 or $4 million of revenue to fulfill?
How did I miss all this?
You kind of feel like a failure, and then you're also angry because again, these aren't just regular employees; these are my friends. We just shot pool at the bar last night. You couldn't talk to me then, and they couldn't. Yeah. And that was the brick wall moment that changed the course of. We started doing some. I think you always say some very deep work, and in that now 3rd or 4th session, we started to truly investigate personal purpose, which from day 1, session 1 of your process and approach, I always thought was super unique because we weren't learning these right out the gate, these leadership principles. Everything for you starts with finding who you are first and what drives you. And I think quite literally what you say is what rings your joy bell. So talk to me about when you started to create what you offer at Initiative 1. Why did you start with finding purpose? So you start and end there. So you start investigating early, then you go on this journey across 9 or 10 sessions, and by your final session, you're actually presenting to the audience your personal purpose and what rings your joy bell, your purpose statement. Talk to me about that.
Well, one of my mentors who was world-renowned and revolutionized, his name was Dr. James Edwards Deming. And he taught me that the greatest organizations are separated from everybody else. What sets them apart are 2 things: how they solve problems and how they make decisions. Most organizations don't make decisions. A decision is a purposeful response to an outward problem. And it's based upon an inward criteria that guides my response. most organizations don't do that. They react. They react to the noise.
Yeah. They
react to whoever is threatening that if you don't do what I tell you to do and meet my needs as a customer, I'm out of here. They react to politics, pressure, pain, and so if you're going to make a decision, you have to have something that you weigh the decision against of whether it's a successful decision or not. And so purpose is it's where you're going and why are you doing it. And purpose is having that area where you have your highest impact and the greatest level of joy and satisfaction while your team is pursuing that with the least amount of resources. And if you don't know your purpose, it's like a football team. A football team can move the ball in a play either 4 yards this way or this way. You don't know if it's a successful play unless you know where the goal line is. If the goal line's here, that was a successful play. If the goal line's here, you just got sacked by 4 yards. Yeah. And so you don't have a criteria to judge the quality of our decisions. Purpose gives you that beginning of the framework of whether this is an appropriate decision or not. And yet less than 1% of companies truly have a purpose. Now, we've all seen a consultant come in and do a weekend exercise, and we've got this nice little plaque in our lobby. We call that plaqueitis.
Yeah. We had that too, man. We had that
too.
It's
pretty. We even invested and put gold lettering on that. So, but it means nothing. But purpose is the first level of your filter of your decision-making process. And so that's what we know that you're never going to change your results if your how you make decisions doesn't change. That's why we always start with helping you to understand your purpose. But not only that, finding the courage to actually make hard decisions to get aligned with your purpose.
I mean, to your point, you mentioned proactive versus reactive living, and once you discovered that, right, getting through all of the sessions, it's not just about business leadership; it's about life leadership. Whether it's in business, whether it's being a husband or father or mother, whether it's the sports activities or your extracurriculars that you might do. It just brought so much clarity for me once I fell into and learned my purpose. And I'm not just saying clarity for the future, which is kind of what you're talking about, right? I'm making better decisions. I'm saying no to more, yes to the right things. But it also brought more clarity in life. Like you could look back, at the time I was probably 35 when I met you. So you could look back 35 years. And I said, oh my gosh, this all makes sense. People used to ask me, so my purpose, and you're going to knock me for not having it down to like the 2 or 3 words anymore. But in essence, it talks about my purpose is really to drive unique and significant experiences for myself and others. And when you think about that and realizing that, there was always this disconnect for me is how do I go from owning a landscaping company, like planting trees and mowing lawns, to owning a professional education company, which is two wildly different industries and wildly different things. The common thing that both of them have is they both provided transformational type significant experiences for people. We built up a pool and landscape around this pool at this luxury apartment community, and it opened up and you saw families go out and have a place to hang out and play. Or when we were at our assisted living facilities, we had a ton of them here in Northeast Ohio. We would go in and do a gardening program, and we would do raise planter boxes so people in wheelchairs could go out and garden right out of the gate. And here at EPI now, we teach a methodology that allows a business owner to drive value into their company and align business, personal, and financial goals and be able to exit with options and on their terms, providing a very significant experience for them and a transformational educational experience for the professional advisor. So it all starts to connect the dots, and it's like it's one of those moments where you're like, I think everybody should go through this. Go through this training because it's so impactful for the way you live and lead. So there are, I'm going to read them to you too. The other thing that you start to go through that I think started to build our foundation of our culture and our people at EPI were these 5 components of organizational culture. And these were also different than what I've learned in the past in your leadership training that you might have in school or other programs. You list them out as impeccable communication, consensus-driven leadership, having a safe environment, healthy self-validation system, and commitment to respectful relationships. Can you talk about why that's the foundation and where you start after purpose?
Let's just go down the list.
Okay.
The first one is impeccable communication. Teams that what we mean by impeccable communication is you put on the table what you're thinking. You don't beat around the bush. We call it KDR, which is kind but direct and respectful.
Yep.
The vast majority of companies have lots of passive-aggressive responses to conflict. And we know that if you want to get rid of drama, and drama is a purpose killer. It's a mission killer. It's a major distraction for company success. Well, the opposite of drama is clarity. And so we teach people that, look, if you have an issue, let's put it on the table. Don't beat around the bush, but say what you mean and mean what you say. And we call that having an adult conversation.
Yeah.
And it sounds simple, but yet it blows people's minds how hard it is to do that, especially if they're raised in a family system that you avoided issues. Or
well, most do, I think, though, Fred. That's the thing. So you're like, oh, to your point, it has to be that KDR, right? It has to be kind, right?
Yeah.
You can't be an ass about it. It has to be kind, should be direct, and should be respectful. But if you can deliver it in KDR, it's super powerful. And I laugh when you talk about it in family systems and in business because it's what you originally saw at EPI, where super high-performing team in terms of the X's and O's, the metrics and numbers. But you saw it happen there where a leader at our company was giving some pretty harsh direction. They had no built-in respect. It wasn't delivered with kindness. And then they had a meeting after the meeting. And think about how much stuff didn't get done then, right? It's wild.
Because while you're doing that, you're not doing what needs to be done.
Exactly.
And when we talk about kind, we don't talk about this touchy-feely stuff. Kind does not necessarily mean comfortable.
Right.
Some of the kindest conversations that mentors had with me were painful in receiving the input from that, but they were game changers for me.
100%.
And so kind is, if I really care about you, I need to give you some information because you're operating from a blind spot. And you're the only one on the team that doesn't know it. And if I really am respectful of you, I need to be your friend and share the truth with you. Otherwise, you're losing influence with the team and you don't even know it. Or you're sabotaging your success by this way that you're dealing with the team or the way that you're making decisions or the way that you're dealing with conflict. And you're killing your ability to raise trust. And I need to have a conversation with you. Great teams have those conversations. But they don't do it in the way that's a gotcha moment. They don't do it in the way that it's an you got me in last month's meeting and now it's my turn to get back to you. These conversations are based upon, number one, I care about you as a teammate and I want you to win. And when you're not winning, we're not winning because we are a team. and we're only as strong as our weakest link. And so one of the most powerful things of healthy teams is that they have that direct communication all the time. They get right to the point, and they can solve a problem so much faster.
Well, you assume, too, that if it wasn't kind or direct or respectful, you'd put that on the table, too, because, again, I like the comment on we have blind spots. And it would be no different than going back to your football analogy, right? If I have a blind spot, I would like to know about that so that we can actively work on that together. Why do you think, though, whether it's in family or business or your social circles, why do you think people can't I think they naturally cannot have tough conversations? And is it very simply because it's just too tough and awkward and people don't want to deal with it? Like, why are we built that way?
Well, you've heard we do a lot. Everything that we teach at Initiative One is research-based.
Yeah.
And our research over 26 years has shown that your level of self-belief has a direct relationship with your ability to receive difficult conversations and to have difficult conversations. And so on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 means take me out back, shoot me now. I have no chance in my life. I'm a complete loser. 10 is, I've arrived. I've got it all together. There's no such thing as a 10. But the average leader, the average adult in American society has a self-belief level of 2.7, which means, man, I am a fraud. And I hope people don't find me out. I hope people don't know how overwhelmed I am in this position. I hope people don't figure out how out of place that I feel, or I am so scared of being a failure. Man, don't call my mistakes out because you're going to find me out. That's 2.7 thinking. Well, 2.7 thinking is what we call performance-based. That my host, at 2.7, I have a basic self-narrative that says, I'm not enough. And yet, we all have a need to matter and to have meaning. Well, if you declare that you're not enough, you got to find that sense of validation from somewhere. Yeah. And the validation comes from, if I'm performance-based, what other people think about me. How do they think about my performance? How do they think about who I am? And so at 2.7, it's very important that I don't disappoint anybody. I don't tick off anybody. I don't ever make someone mad at me because I'm giving my power to them. And if they're going to be upset with me, then I'll be upset with me. So my whole basis of validity is making sure there's no discomfort, that I'm always the yes person, that I'll never disappoint someone. Well, having that conversation, number one, the risk of that is that I may tick you off, or you may choose to reject me, or you may close me off and treat me differently. Or in receiving that conversation about, Scott, we need to talk about how you're leading a couple members of your team, which is a performance issue. Well, if my whole sense of validity is based upon what people think about my performance, then accountability now becomes a threat. Yeah. It becomes a way that I'm being exposed. And so if you don't change a person's help them to rise and change their self-belief level, you're never going to receive accountability. Because you're going to get defensive, and you're never going to give accountability. So the first part of our process is helping someone to move from a narrative that says, and this is the biggest game changer in leadership, from I am not enough to I am enough. And and by the way, that narrative, you need to get your self-belief level around to a 7 or an 8. And what we found, our process actually does that. Yeah. Now, I didn't believe that at first. It was my own work. And I thought, how can someone change a narrative in 3 months that has been pushed on them since birth, either by a
for
parent
years,
or their
decades.
friends or whatever.
Yeah.
And yet we know that at 7, when I get to a 7, now I'm no longer performance-based. My value comes from accepting who I am, warts and all. No one can take my value. That my value comes in me being me. And standing by my convictions, living by my principles, being the best version of me. And so at 7, for instance, at 2.7, when you're having a hard discussion with me, I'm not going to listen to it because it feels like you're not talking about just my performance with my 2 teammates. You're talking about me and my mama. You know, that's your identity.
Yeah.
And so when you're at 7, if you make a mistake at 7, you go, okay, man, I wish I hadn't done that, but I want to learn from it. And how do I get better from that? So you take those moments and you become coachable. At 2.7, you're not coachable.
No, you're not. Right.
And so that's why the major work to prepare a person for a KDR team is you have to know that if someone's going to have a tough conversation, it's coming out of positive intent. It's because they care about me. And if I make a mistake, it doesn't mean I am a mistake, 2.7. At 7 or 8, hey, thanks for caring about me. Now, what do I need to do to improve this so this is not a pattern of my performance moving forward?
But I think this is where personal purpose comes back into play too, right? Because that is also one of the components, I think, is that self-validation kind of system, right? Where I think that the foundation of finding your purpose allows you to actually have better communication and know that you want to move from a 2.7 to a 7 to a 7 or 8.
Scott, there's no reason to have a purpose when you're at 2.7.
Yeah, I guess it's right. Yeah.
There's no reason because I'm not, everyone else is running my life at 2.7. And so wherever the pressure is, whatever I need to do to relieve that pressure, that's going. So that's like a person playing ping pong. Yeah. They're going from here to here to here to here to here to here to here, and yet at the end of the day, they move no more than 3 feet. And a lot of us live that ping pong life. And
I think we do. I think it's just incredible, though, because I think a lot of Americans and folks, maybe even reflecting as they hear our show today, are like, I do live that back and forth kind of ping pong life where I don't really feel in the driver's seat all that much.
And so purpose, if I don't think much of myself, a purpose is not going to be very important. And if I'm at 2.7, my purpose isn't going to matter anyway. And does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
So great teams, my background is I was mentored and actually started this company was started with a partner of a lady who ran an organization called the Baldrige Foundation, which determined at that time in the late 90s which was the best company in the entire United States. That was a game changer that set a standard for everyone. And what they found in examining that rare air is those companies did not try to be all things to all people. They were not trying to, whatever this customer wants me to be, I'll do it. Wherever this customer wants me to go, no, they operated by an internal criteria. Where this is when we are operating within this criteria, this is when we have our highest performance, our greatest impact. But it's being true to ourselves first. What is our vision as an organization? What are our non-negotiable values? And what are our strategic goals? That if we are able to fulfill those goals, that is transformational for a company.
Right.
And so the greatest companies are true to themselves internally first. Yeah. And if someone is not saying, no, I don't want you to be that kind of company if I'm not going to do business, if you want to do business with me. The greatest company says, we're not a fit. It's just not a fit. One of my favorite stories is Southwest Airlines, Herb Kelleher. If you've ever been on a Southwest compared to Delta, when you get on a Southwest Air a jet, the culture immediately when you walk in is completely different.
It is.
You know, you're met by a person wearing a Hawaiian shirt and short pants, and here with Delta, you're a stiff person and a stiff, and when you land at Southwest, you're going to. Someone may do a cattle call, and the place is going to break out. It's a lot of fun, and he got and plus they don't have at that time they didn't have seating.
Right.
Whoever got there first, and they even had what we call the party seats where they faced each other, and, you know, and so he gets a letter from some lady and says, you know, I'm a high-flying executive, and I don't like the way that you guys operate. Number one, I should be on that plane first, and I don't want that happy. I need to concentrate when I've got business to do, and he writes back and says to her, "Ma'am, I'm really sorry, but the fact is you're flying on the wrong airline."
Yeah, right.
Our business model does not suit what you need from us. Mm-hmm. That's an example of setting a boundary.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
And your purpose is part of your boundary system.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. Absolutely.
Hey there, business owners. Are you ready for a game-changing opportunity? Introducing the 2023 National State of Owner Readiness Report. Over the past decade, this groundbreaking research has reshaped how we view business ownership and exit planning. This report isn't just another study, it's a deep dive into the evolution of business ownership. It shines a spotlight on the crucial intersection of business attractiveness and owner readiness, revealing the undeniable impact of preparation on achieving successful transitions. With younger generations taking the reins, exit planning is taking on a whole new perspective. Education and awareness about preparing for the future have never been more crucial, and with financial readiness leading the charge, there's a clear opportunity for growth and learning. But here's the kicker. The report shows a surge in exit planning education and understanding, yet many still lack formal transition teams, highlighting the essential role of comprehensive support. So who's got your back? Trusted advisors have evolved from CPAs to financial advisors, making a decade of significant change in support networks. Ready to take the next step towards a successful exit? Dive into the Exit Planning Institute's 2023 National State of Owner Readiness Report and start shaping your legacy today. The future is knocking. Are you ready to answer? Discover your readiness level at 2023ownerreadiness.com and take the first step towards a successful and significant exit.
Are you a business owner seeking to unlock the true potential of your enterprise? Look no further than the second edition of Christopher Snider's revolutionary book, Walking to Destiny: 11 Actions an Owner Must Take to Rapidly Grow Value and Unlock Wealth. In this updated edition, Snider presents proven strategies for maximizing your company's value and accelerating growth. Whether you're aiming to sell or simply want to ensure long-term success, this book offers a blueprint for building a thriving, self-sustaining business. Walking to Destiny isn't just another book, it's a game changer, backed by Snider's own experience as a successful business owner and as a CPA. This book bridges the gap between business owners and advisors, guiding you towards financial freedom. But don't just take our word for it, hear from those whose lives have been transformed by its insights. One satisfied reader raves, "The best guide for transitioning out of privately owned companies. I recommend it to all business owners and advisors." Another praises it on its focus for maximizing business value, calling it their, quote, principal tool for educating owners. Ready to take control of your business's destiny? Visit walkingtodestiny.com now and use code EXITISNOW to claim your free copy of Walking to Destiny: 11 Actions an Owner Must Take to Rapidly Grow Value and Unlock Wealth. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Make the moment perfect by seizing this opportunity today.
Talk to me about one of the other components that I think we actually kind of walk through a lot of them, but the second one that is there that I think we haven't necessarily touched on that I think was a big change for us at EPI as well is consensus-driven leadership. I think that was also a game changer for us.
Consensus is one of the most misunderstood leadership concepts that there is. Most people think that consensus is that we all have to agree on something before we can move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And we call that leadership by committee. Actually, I call that leadership by abdication.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually the opposite of leadership. Because if we work in a world now that is dictated by quality and speed, and you have to have both. Well, in a team that we have to all agree before we do something, it's going to take forever for that team to make a decision. Not only that, they're probably not going to agree. And the toxic people learn how to actually lead that environment by always being contrary.
Mm-hmm.
And so your toxic people in that kind of environment actually lead the team from under the table by just stalling and saying, I don't agree with that. And they hold that toxic power. That is not what consensus is. Consensus is the process by which we make a decision. And it's dictated by transparency, KDR, that everyone's going to speak their mind. Because as the leader, you have to make a decision. And you need as much information and different points of view to look at in order to see and to be as informed as possible. But as the leader that's most responsible to the organization, you have to make the decision. Consensus means that we all had input. And in good faith, you were listening to all of these. But just because I offer a viewpoint doesn't mean that I wasn't heard by you because you decided to go in a different direction.
Right.
And because as adults, sometimes our viewpoint, we didn't win the day. Someone else may have a different viewpoint that was more powerful, or it actually fit our value system, our purpose, better than your suggestion did. And so at that point, consensus is the leader of that team has to make a decision. And it's based, and you can't beat around the bush. Guys, we've got 1 hour to make a decision. And so I need you to speak your mind. I need honesty here. I need clarity and transparency. And then once you make a decision, the expectation is everyone's going to fall around, whether I agreed, if I fought vigorously to go in a different direction. Once you make that decision, I am going to walk out of that room giving you 100% support. And I can do that with integrity and not being a puppet because I vigorously had the space to say, I disagree with that, and this is why.
Exactly.
But I trust the decision-making process of the team.
Mm-hmm.
I trust that we're going to work through that stuff, and as a team, you're going to affirm for us which is the best direction. And by the way, I'm not going to get out of the way from the meeting. And when someone says, "Well, how did you guys do that on that decision?" I'm not going to go, "Well, you know how we are here. We have to." Once a decision is being made in the team, we have to support it, which I just told you I don't support the decision.
Mm-hmm.
No, you fight for it. And if you can't support the decision of the team outside of the room, you have no business being on the team. And so consensus is clarity, but it is someone has veto power. Now, you're not going to pull veto power every time. Sometimes a team may decide to go in a direction that you go, you know what? I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that, but this team needs to learn from this. Or let's try it. And what's the worst thing we can do? Let's adjust. Let's adapt.
I think this is a key thing. Like we would talk about this in the value acceleration world when we talk about decentralizing the business owner. One of the biggest things that I've learned about decentralizing myself for my own business is basically what you're talking about. Me and my dad go back and forth and say there has to be more yeses than nos. Right? So if your whole team is collectively giving you this feedback, but you do have a veto power, but every time they give you something, you veto it and go your way. That's also not consensus-driven leadership. You have to be able to say yes more than no.
Yes. If you end up using your veto power too much.
Yeah, to kill everything.
Well, you've either got the wrong team or you're the wrong leader.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
100%.
And
100%.
So, but the team, for this to work, the team has to have a framework that we all agree upon for decision making.
Exactly right.
And I'm not going to bring a decision to you, a request to you that is outside our strategic plan and how we give resources. And so what holds us together is an expectation that we're going to operate in the boundaries of how of what we say yes to and what we say no to. And so there will be times as a leader you have to trust your team. Mm-hmm. Now, there may be times that because of your experience, you have such experience and your team doesn't have the wisdom yet, and they don't know if we go that direction, there's a freight train coming. Mm-hmm. That's when you pull veto power, because the learning will not the learning from it and the statement to your team that I trust in you will still, you're inviting the freight train to come through your door. And so that's when you pull veto power. But it's veto power, and or if you have information that you can't share with the team, because it may be confidential. Yeah. And the team has to trust that. Now, if you keep saying every time, guys, I can't share it because it's confidential. Can't share it because I'm confidential.
Right.
Now the team, you're going to lose the trust of the team.
Of course.
And so, but when you're not using veto power all the time, the team knows that when you do pull veto power, they trust you because this is not Scott's pattern. Mm-hmm. And let's get on board. That's how great teams operate.
So let's talk a little bit about trust too, and another, I think, key component of the foundation of, I think, what you do, and certainly what you did for us in our company. The other thing that you started from the get-go is you had us, I think it was like by session 3 or certainly even maybe the next session, we had to create and agree upon some trust accelerators, which you're the only person that has ever taught me that. You know, people teach a lot about core values, and the way I look at your trust accelerators are by having the trust accelerators, they actually they allow us to have everything that we've been talking about, but also allow us to live out our core values. You need both. It's not one or the other. And I think if I looked at other companies and why they don't feel attached to their core values or feel that they're more deliberately living their core values, it's likely because they don't have these trust accelerators. So talk to me about that.
Well, we've all been in seminars where someone was facilitating and said, okay, let's have the rules of engagement. And we all spend time talking about what are the rules of engagement for the next 2 days. Mm-hmm. And everybody is going, okay, here we go again. And because as soon as it's violated by a certain person, mm-hmm. that person is not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows it. So it's never real. They don't believe in it. And so trust accelerators are a different thing. Trust accelerators are, okay, as a team, you may be a team that's never had a pattern of being able to work well together. Or you may have a team that you've got 3 or 4 people who have a history of conflict with each other, and they don't trust each other. And you don't come in one day and go, okay, you all, let's just start trusting each other. That is not real. But you have to start from somewhere. And we call that giving someone 20 cents. 20 cents is, guys, we're going to make a decision, a commitment from this point forward to give each other the benefit of the doubt. But I'm not going to give you my full dollar. I'm only going to give you 20 cents. In order to go from 20 cents to $1, we need to agree upon some things from each other. Mm-hmm. That as long as those that I am operating within those expectations and you're operating within those expectations, that's how 20 cents becomes a quarter, and then 40 cents and 50 cents. And so a trust accelerator is how we behave with each other in moments of conflict resolution, misunderstanding, working through a problem. It's how we're going to be adults and how we respect each other and listen to each other. And so it is the foundation for change. And here's where it gets real. We all agree that we're going to hold each other accountable. Whenever someone violates in a meeting, that, for instance, let's say one of the trust accelerators is we're going to be respectful to each other in the middle of our dialogue. And you say something and I go, whatever. Most teams, they've all seen that.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone immediately goes in, what's going on there? That's when we call the conversation has just now gone under the table.
Yeah.
Everybody's, well, what's going on between Fred and Scott there?
Yeah.
And at that point, no one's thinking about the over-the-table thing that you're supposed to make a decision on. And so if I'm doing this, most teams aren't going to touch it.
No one really ever addresses that.
Yeah, they don't address it. In a real powerful world-class team, they go, time out. Hey, Fred, man, we agreed. Fred, I just saw that you rolled your eyes. What's that about, man?
Yeah, like talk to me about it.
Yeah, talk about that's an under-the-table issue. Let's get it on the table.
Because you understand where that's going. I mean, you certainly do. But like for our audience, you see how this is going to go, right? So you roll your eyes, which means you're putting something under the table. And what your next step is, you're going to leave that meeting and go talk to the guy next door and says, could you believe that shit that Scott was talking about?
That's right. And
now it just snowballs into this toxic organization.
Now you have meetings after the meeting.
Of course, all kinds.
That's right.
And then you're also not on board with the decision.
The trust accelerators says the meeting is going to be the meeting here.
Yes.
When we make a decision, it's going to be here. There's not going to be meetings before the meeting. There's not going to be ally building. Hey, if you do this, I'll support you on that.
Yeah.
No, we're going to be adults and we're going to put all the stuff right here. And then if there's an issue, we're going to discuss it right here.
Yeah.
And we're going to put it on the table. Another one is no meetings after the meeting. That when you walk out and I go up to Donovan and say, hey, Donovan, man, what do you think about what Scott said in that meeting? Well, I thought he was full of crap, and no, in a real team, it'll be, I'll go up to Donovan. What do you think about that? I thought I can't believe Scott said that. And Donovan's going to say, time out, Fred. That's not what we agreed upon, man. If you felt that way, why didn't you say that to Scott right there? Mm-hmm. And Fred, now that you've said it to me, you've gotten me, my mind's spinning, and that's not fair. So, Fred, we all agreed that if we break that trust accelerator, that we're going to hold each other accountable. So, Fred, I expect you next week. Either now, you need to go over there and have a conversation with Scott right now, or commit to me that you're going to put it on the table.
Yes.
At our next meeting.
Exactly right.
That's how you begin to create a culture of accountability.
Yeah.
And trust accelerators, the team has to agree, what do we need that if we operate within these trust accelerators, it builds a foundation that there's nothing that we can't talk about.
Exactly.
And it creates what we call psychological maturity. Mm-hmm. Great teams are psychologically safe with each other.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that they're not going to have passionate conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
There's going to be vigorous conversation. Mm-hmm. But we all understand it's coming from a place of positive intent because we're all committed to the best result. And so that's trust accelerators. It creates high trust. It accelerates decision-making. Mm-hmm. It accelerates the quality of decision-making. And when you're an organization that's making faster decisions and better solutions to your problems, you're going to win the marketplace over time compared to your competitors.
And then tie it back to value too. Like these are the frameworks I think that are inside of the human capital side and the social capital side. And really what you're doing too is the structural capital side. So you're making higher performing, very integrated, very intentional teams which accelerate the success of your company, right? You'll be able to grow quicker, make better decisions, and offer better products and services to your customers while retaining and attracting great talent. And you'll be adding long-term significance to your company and long-term value. That's why, as we started to build together our relationship over the last 5 years, there's a clear, you're the X's and O's of creating a more valuable organization. Like, this is how we do it. While we do it, we create more success year over year, which turns into a more significant and highly valuable company.
Well, so
think about that, though.
Let me give you a perfect example for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I first met you, you were still in that the only delivery model that you had is everybody had to come to you.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And you had to make a pivot in the middle of COVID.
Yes.
If you did not have a team that was now on the same page and was operating on the same expectations about how we're going to make decisions, when you move from a delivery model that has been successful and has been your bread and butter, and now you're looking at going in a completely different direction, that can be very threatening to an organization. Mm-hmm. You may have people on your team that some people have more difficulty with change than others. If that team doesn't have high trust with each other, making a pivot like that is going to be tough. And not only that, making the pivot, but you got to make the pivot quickly. Exactly. And within 2 weeks.
Or it makes everything more efficient too. Like, we just came in the fall, in November, we take our executives on our executive retreat. And I always get really reflective at that time of year, and not only reflective in the moment, right? Because that's what the retreat is for. But you look back over the past, I don't know, we've been doing retreats probably since 2015. Once we've hired, a few employees that we could actually take on a retreat, and they become more productive each year. Because to your point, if I get 6 executives in a room for 3 days. We were all over the place in years past, right? And you have all kinds of the sticky notes up all over the walls, but you really left saying, "What the hell are we doing now?" Or you left and we would do it too, right? Like, me and my dad would leave, go have a drink at the bar, and we would say, "Can you believe what those people were talking about?" To our own people in our own company. We were the ones having the meeting after the meeting. Yeah. Why wouldn't we just talk about it in that room?
Yeah.
And so to your point about faster decision making, being able to pivot, and being able to excel. Imagine you can have 51 people on that. The fact of the matter is this: we went from 11 people with high turnover rate to 51 people with low turnover rate. We have grown by 45% year over year since meeting you. And we're a high performing organization. 71% of EPI employees say that they're very satisfied with their job, where the American average is 48%. Yes. And I think it's a key contributor to I think what we began knowing after meeting you and going through your program in the years to come, and after getting through your program, it took us a little longer to get through our program during the pandemic. I think we ended up finishing out in early 2021. And what I think became at EPI is a group of servant leaders. And what we used to think is, and I didn't necessarily do this naturally, it was, we were growing like a freight train, right? Like, from 2012, we went from 120 SEPAs to about 2,000 SEPAs. So intense growth. But we did it at the expense of people.
That's right. And that's what the 11 people were telling you.
And that's what they were telling us.
Yeah.
And then we flipped that, and now we do it with that people to move from this me culture to this we culture.
That's right.
And that's what we've been talking about on this show, is how do you move that mentality and do it with people. And I also think that in our world today, with Gen Xers, millennials, and the younger folks that are coming up after them, they want that style of leadership. That's the cultures and the organizations that are going to be meaningful to them. So we have to begin pivoting our mindset. For me too, I think when I met you, you have all kinds of mentors, but my mentors were from like the 70s and 80s, which is just not bad, just a different style of leadership back then.
Our society was in a different place.
Right. And now today, with people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and even 50s, They're looking for more meaning out of life. And to your point, you started the show saying, we spend a hell of a lot of time with our teams, and we are and I think Americans generally, regardless of age, find a lot of purpose and passion in the work that they do out there. And so, but again, they don't want it at the expense of them. They want it to be with them.
That's right. So we're talking about trust.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got a group of people on your team that don't trust you, or they don't trust the company,
mm-hmm.
they're not going to bring their full selves. It's just a job.
Exactly.
And
right.
I'm going to do what I have to do out of duty.
To get by.
But it's not going to be out of passion.
No.
It's not going to be because it's my team. It's because it's your team and I need a job. So trust today is the latter two generations that are in the workforce. And one of the things about you guys, you all have the youngest group of leaders.
Yeah.
Look, we're currently right now working with 128 companies. Of the 128, EPI by far has the youngest set of leaders.
Yeah.
And yet those leaders have created magic.
Yeah.
Those, I think out of all the 11, you still have 8 of them after.
I think 9. Yeah, 9 are still here.
And 2 of them, it was because of life. One of them is because of life situations.
Mm-hmm.
And another one was because when you set expectations and that team begins to operate within those expectations, that may outgrow the ability for that person.
I know. Yeah.
To, they up to here it fit, but as the team continues to get better, that person, if you're not growing or you don't have the capability of being a part of that, it may no longer be a fit.
Exactly.
But today, here's what trust is. Trust is built upon, number one, are you real with me? We call that vulnerability. Vulnerability is not soft. It is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Vulnerability is having hard discussions at the risk that you may get ticked at me. Vulnerability is having an accountability discussion when you don't want to have it.
Yeah.
And vulnerability is, as the leader, do you care about me? Do you know me? Do you know my story? I need to know, am I just a cog in your wheel, or do I matter to you? And so today's leader has to be able to genuinely begin to build sincere relationships. If I'm at 2.7, I'm not going to build a sincere relationship because I'm scared to death that you're going to judge me in that relationship, or you may turn me away. And so vulnerability, and one of the reasons why I've seen you make a pivot from becoming the boss to the mentor.
Yeah,
and
that's a good way
you
to put
can't mentor unless I have relationship. Because I may be trying to mentor you, but if I'm not receiving what you have to say, you're not mentoring me. You're just yakking.
I'm just yelling at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so relationship through vulnerability gives you permission to have those hard conversations, and that I'm going to receive it because I know you care about me. The other two are authenticity. Are you who you say you are? Vulnerability is, do I know you and do you know me? And are you going to be real with me? And the other is transparency. Are you going to put it all on the table?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to treat me like a kid and only give me information? In today's world, with a generation that they have received information all their lives,
yes.
One-way communication, they don't know how to process it, because you've wired their brains. And so that is why, to have high trust, you have to have inclusion. And that means the two most important things a leader can say to their teammates is, number one, how are you? And I mean that. How are you? How was your vacation, man? Now, I was reading a book called The $1 Million Coach, of the number one coach in the Silicon Valley. and he had all of the big ones, every one of them, and he was known as a legend. And he would work with these high-driving CEOs, and yet he would open their conversations with, "I want to know, how was your vacation?" "What? I'm paying you $3,000 an hour to talk about my vacation? What are you talking about? What are you talking about?" But he wouldn't get off of it. And he was teaching them, guys, if you're not taking interest in what's going on in their lives outside of this place, they're not going to bring their real selves, because these are people who want fluidity between their personal life and their professional life.
Yeah.
And so the other is not only how are you doing? If I'm in a strategic planning meeting and I ask that question, and I say to you, "Scott, actually I suck right now because I just learned my wife had melanoma." And in the old days, number one, I wouldn't say it in that area.
Of course not.
I wouldn't say it. And if I did say it, you'd go, "Oh, I'm sorry. Now we got a strategic plan."
Yeah.
What I just said to you is you're a tool for me.
Yeah, exactly right.
And so and you can't do it so it's a tactic in leadership. You got to do it. You got to be sincere. So how are you? And by the way, guys, we're going to set aside this strategic planning discussion right now because it's more important what's going on. How are you? And now when you're a member of a team that you know they care about you sincerely, I want to be a part of that. I want to engage with them. So passion goes up. Commitment goes up. You ever been around a leader that's just going through the motions? They're not going to turn out a quality product. And so, but you give me 11 people that feel that we're a team of a family, and I mean a family that, man, we're going to have those hard conversations, but we got each other's back. And that's a group that people are going to bring passion to and commitment and owners. That's an ownership mentality. The other is, so the first is, how are you? And the second is, what do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think? I work with a lot of NFL teams, and I'm working, and by the way, it is not the players who typically have the issues in leadership. It's the coaches.
It's the coaches, yeah.
Because when I teach them that you need, in the middle of that playing, that defensive back meeting, you need to ask them at some point, "Guys, what do you think about this game plan?" "What? I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't need some kid telling me about my game plan." And with that generation that has grown up giving feedback and receive, you just now said, "I don't trust you." You cannot demonstrate trust unless you want my ideas. "Hey, Joe, listen, I'm really glad you're part of this team, but there are certain things that I really don't want your input. Are we clear about that?"
Yeah.
What did I just say to you?
You don't trust me.
I don't trust
It's about
you.
me.
That's right. So that is why today you better have enough security in yourself, 7 or an 8, to be able to ask, "What do you think?" Because they may give you some input that your plan is flawed. And I'd rather have it in that locker room, in that meeting, that my plan is flawed so I can adjust it, instead of being out in the middle of the field and my plan was flawed and my defensive back just got burned because we were in the wrong formation.
And lost the game.
Game. And so that's trust. How you lead today is completely different. And what you did, Scott, is you transformed how you led.
Yeah.
You quit being the teller and you started being the teacher. And your employees became friends. But that didn't mean that we weren't going to have tough conversations. And so one of the reasons why EPI has grown so much is because you've grown.
Yeah.
And your team has grown. And I'd put your leadership team up against anybody that we know.
Thank you for that. I appreciate
I
that.
would. And
done a lot of work.
It is. And it's constant work. constant.
So you've
work.
never arrived. No, you've never arrived. So, Fred, we're at the top of the hour, believe it or not, right? And I want to continue this conversation in part 2. I want to bring you back onto the show so that you and I can now start to apply this directly into the business. And since you've taken this journey with us over the last 5 years or so, we can kind of start to show our audience kind of some real-life case study, how we've taken the last hour of key concepts and approaches that Fred teaches, and how have we applied them directly into the business, my business, which is the Exit Planning Institute. So stick with us. We will be back on February 4th for part 2 of our episode with Fred. And if you love the podcast, I ask you to share it out there. I really appreciate it, everybody. Thanks.